Hey everyone, it's Star Charger here, the Unicorn Goddess on my channel, Spoken Openly, where we say it like we mean it. And this is the 6th episode about the declassified CIA documents about astral travel, consciousness, energy, the Monroe method, the gateway experience, remote viewing, the holographic nature of the universe, and all items related to that. This is a nearly 30-page document that we've been going over that discusses all these things, a sanitized copy from the CIA. And I'm so happy to bring this information to y'all. It's even clarifying so many things that I know about or have practiced but maybe didn't completely understand the mechanism. This is breaking it all down scientifically. And again, I will say this is the sanitized copy. This is the copy that they're saying is, quote, safe for the general public. Imagine all of the things that they redacted and kept out of this document. All right, having said that, let's get started. We are on the bottom of page 9 on 17, self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspect of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e., self-cognition. Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment, evaluating the functioning of their thought processes against various objective standards they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive that projection, put it through comparison with the memory aspect, where it evaluates standards of measure are stored of its own hologram, and measure or sense the difference using three-dimensional geometry and then binary go, no-go pulse to yield verbal cognition about the self. So it's saying that although plants and animals have a certain level of consciousness, humans have an even higher level of consciousness because we can see ourselves and we can compare ourselves with future and past versions of ourselves, while animals tend more to live in the moment. We have a sense of self and we can compare it to our memories and stuff. Okay. 18. Time, space, dimension. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. But now the fun begins. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be accessed in the dimension of time-space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time-space is the next task which must be addressed. You heard that. They said human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitation of time-space. All right. To do this, we must first appreciate that time and space are in order to understand how the dimension that they constitute can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it is a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location which is distinguishable from other locations. Space. Energy which is not confined is force without limit, without dimension, without the limits of form. It is infinity, cannot move because there is nothing beyond infinity, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space, because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if energy is in the state of infinity, there are no boundaries, no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy in infinity means energy uniformly extended without limit. It has no beginning, no end, no location. It is conscious force without limit. It is conscious force, the fundamental, primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the created universe, but it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the active universe. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe, in which we experience our physical existence, are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness in altered states of being may gain access. Theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops, because the absolute generates no hologram of or about itself. So theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops because the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. That would be like the great void, the infinite, the abyss, the source. Number 19, intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, i.e., without boundaries, it occupies every dimension, to include the time-space dimension in which we have our physical existence, but we cannot perceive it. It overlays everything, as do many of the intervening gradients or dimensions through which the energies of the universe pass on their way to and from their home in the state of infinity, the absolute. To enter these intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern which comprises the consciousness, i.e., the brainwave output, can accelerate to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, would look virtually like a solid line. Achievement of this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non time-space dimension because of the operation of a principle in physics known as Planck's distance. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brainwave, reaches 2 points of complete rest, which constitute the boundaries of each individual oscillation, i.e., the movement up or down. Without these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. But it is also true that when, for an infinitesimally brief instant, the energy reaches one of these 2 points of rest, it, quote, clicks out of time-space and joins infinity. See Exhibit 3. I'll post it for y'all. That critical step out of time-space occurs when the speed of the oscillation drops below 10 to the negative 33rd power centimeters per second, called Planck's distance. To use the words of Bentov, quote, quantum mechanics tell us that when distances go below Planck's distance, which is 10 to the negative 33 centimeters, we enter in effect a new world. Unquote, To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such high frequency that the patterns of clickouts come so close together that there's virtual continuity in it. Then a portion of that consciousness is actually postulated to establish and maintain its information collection function in those dimensions located between time, space, and the absolute. Thus, as the almost continuous click-out pattern establishes itself in continuous fades at speeds below Planck's distance, but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time-space after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. The gateway experience with its associated hemisync technique is apparently designed, if used systematically and patiently, to enable human consciousness to establish a coherent pattern of perception in those dimensions where speeds below Planck's distance apply. This holds true irrespective of whether the individual is exercising his consciousness while in his physical body, or whether he is doing so after having separated that consciousness from the physical body, i.e., the so-called out-of-body state mentioned earlier. Alright, y'all, so what it's basically saying is that as you get your brainwaves oscillating fast enough, high enough frequency, at the peak and the trough of each brainwave, your consciousness is clicking out of this dimension, clicking in and out of this dimension. And when you get your brainwaves high enough, the space between those clicking in and out of consciousness is almost eliminated. So it's like you're constantly in the other dimension. And then you can access higher forms of consciousness, higher holographic packs of information, and come out of your body and retrieve information. That is very fascinating. With every video, as I'm going through this, I'm learning new things. So even though I'm delighted to be bringing y'all this information, I'm also learning things. This video is already 15 minutes long, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to start another recording continuing on. I I am so happy that I get to be a conduit of this information. I'm delighted to bring it to y'all. I hope that y'all can receive it. Please like and share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Please comment down below. Give me your feedback. I appreciate y'all so much. Much love to all my mystical, magical, wonderful, cosmic, multidimensional unicorns. And until the next time we meet, here is to your empowerment, your evolution, your enlightenment, and the expansion of your consciousness. Alright, y'all. Star Charger out.